Hey guys, welcome back to another vlog. The last couple of weeks have been pretty busy. I've got lots done, so I've got lots to show you. This place that I'm just driving here is called Pickles, and it's a warehouse where they sell a whole lot of like insurance claim gear, or if a business closes down they sell it for their equipment. And I bid on and won some IT equipment. I got 2 screens and a computer for my brother. The screens were about $40 each, and the computer was, I think, about $300. I've bought a computer from Pickles before, and it only cost me, I think, about $45, but this one cost a lot more. It's a Intel i5-4570 processor with, it had 8 gigs of RAM, and it's a 250GB SSD hard drive. And it came with a keyboard and mouse, and also some other CDs and manuals and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, basically I was buying it for the SSD and the processor, which is pretty good, and I was able to upgrade and put some RAM in it, and also install a PCI Express wireless card. And then I went just through the same process I always do and put on a new copy of Windows, upgrade all the drivers, and just set up the PC for its intended user. That means just getting all the correct programs for it, and you know, adding on any features that he would likely use. And so far so good. Everything runs really well, and I tested both the screens. One was going to be for Jason's computer, and the other one is so I can have a dual monitor set up with my computer. In the last vlog I mentioned that we had a couple guys come out and quote for some carpet. When we first got to the house, the carpet that was in there was really badly stained, and it smelled so bad. And yeah, one of the first things we did was rip it up. So we've been living on underlay for the last year, and this is basically how the rooms look at the moment. So before the new carpet could be put in, we had to pull up the underlay, and there was like an adhesive sort of foam underlay that had to be scraped off as well before the new stuff could go in. And that was pretty shit work, but had to be done. The carpet guy actually recommended using a spade, and for the most part it worked pretty good, but there were some areas where there was like maybe a stronger like liquid nails or some other adhesive that was just so hard to get up. So we resorted to using like a wire wheel on an angle grinder, and you know, just really trying to get it flat. And yeah, the worst part about it was that we had to do 4 rooms, but luckily the rest of the house is tiled, so I guess it could have been worse. It was kind of satisfying if you got a nice roll. And Reggie was not a fan of the spade, so he found himself a nice little hiding spot. And then the carpet was installed, and it was just a single guy by himself. He was a beast. It probably only took him about 5 hours, and he said it was nice and easy because all of the rooms were separate and none of them joined, so there are no sort of tricky pieces to go between doorways. And yeah, it turned out pretty nice. I was really happy with how it turned out. I couldn't really get much footage because I was pretty sure he wouldn't be happy with me filming while he's trying to work, but yeah, here's the end sort of product. This is the lounge. There's no skirting in here, and there's no skirting in the dining room or the kitchen area or the hallway, so that was the next job, and man, what a mission. So we measured up and went to Bunnings, and I got, I think it was 15 lengths of 2.7 meters of pre-finished white skirting, and I think it's just MDF, and my CRV was just big enough to be able to squeeze them in. Because there was no skirting on the walls, there was actually a lot of damage, and we had to plaster, so it meant gluing the skirting to the wall was kind of not an option. So what I did instead was I would drill a hole into the bricks with a masonry drill bit and put an insert into that hole, and then I could countersink some holes into the wooden skirting, and then I could screw the skirting to the wall. And I also used a little bit of liquid nails as well. So yeah, the process was pretty easy. I could just measure my lengths and set my drop saw to the correct angle. Then I can make my cuts. And these are the countersink drill bits that I use just to drill some holes into the skirting so that the screws can be recessed. And then just for a little bit of extra adhesion, I put on some liquid nails. and then I can screw it to the wall. Some of the pieces were a little bit trickier.
So now I'm just sneaking up on the cut, and basically what you're doing is once you get your inside angle and you've got a flat edge like this, you're basically just taking small swipes off it each time until it fits perfectly, and you take it back, you test it in spot. If you need to shave off more, come back.
And then lastly, I can use a combination of paintable silicone and plaster to cover over the holes left by the screws. Then we have to sand and paint, and once I've done that, I'll show you what it looks like in the next vlog. We had a delivery, this time some blinds that we had ordered online about 4 weeks beforehand, and they're pretty plain and about as sort of simple and cheap as you can get for the style that we wanted. And I'm not a huge fan, but this house will just end up being a rental, so it's more about putting something affordable in there that's going to last, and I think these will do much better and even look a bit nicer than what was there in the first place. I've put 1 or 2 of the blinds up already, but it's quite a difficult job. You have to use a masonry drill again to mount the bracketry, and it's quite difficult because there's some sunken metal frames that you've got to work your way around. So once I'm sort of a master, I'll show that in the next vlog about how I put those up, and hopefully you guys can get some tips from that too. And then pretty much the last thing I can show you guys is some backyard mechanics that I did on my sister's car, where I had a go at repairing some damage that had been done to the rear end and sort of shifting the tail light back into place, and I also installed a stereo. So I removed the light first, then undid all the bolts and screws to remove the back bumper, and then I can assess the damage. The picture there is showing the right hand side, which is undamaged, and then showing the left hand side, so you can just see where the impact of the rear pushed in the frame for the bumper, and that's probably why the light is recessed so far into the boot. And then I just went to town with the hammer and some vice grips, trying to pry the frame back out into place and actually whack the sort of housing for the light back out into place as well. But I ended up going one step further and actually taking the bumper mount off the frame of the car. With it off the car, it was a little bit easier to manage and sort of bend it back into shape, but I ended up just getting the angle grinder out and cutting it off because the frame was so crumpled into itself. I did my best to straighten out the metal without a vise, which I realised I really need. Then I used some 4mm rivets to fix it back onto the frame. Then I could put it all back together and just try to align that plastic bumper as best as possible. Someone had already put some tech screws into the side to hold it on, so yeah, kind of the only option was to put those back in. Then I could fit the light back in, and you can see there's a small difference, and it does sit a little bit better, but after about 3 hours of work it just made me realise I'm definitely not cut out to be a panel beater. Onto the stereo. The car has the factory Hyundai stereo in there, which just has a tape player and the radio, so I swapped it out for a Clarion one, which is also pretty dated, but it does have a CD player, so that's one upgrade there. And because there's no real resale value on the car, I just chopped the stereo connector from the factory unit and soldered the Clarion head unit connector onto it. Some stereos come with a wiring diagram on them, but usually you can just look them up online. A general rule of thumb, there's always battery, ground, switch to ignition voltage, and your 4 pairs for the 4 speakers in your car. And then just test it out and put it back together. And that's it for this vlog. I'll just show you some footage of a fire that was up in the hills about maybe 30 kilometers from where our house is. There was heaps of smoke, and the best part was at night when you could actually see the light from the flames on the bottom of the smoke. And it made a really, really interesting sunset. It was so red. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see more of. Hope you enjoyed.